The bright lights of the car's showroom made every car look shiny and new. Customers were busy walking around checking out the fancy cars. The salesman stood nearby ready to sell a car. Suddenly, the glass doors opened and a man walked in. He didn't look special. He wore an old black t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days. He didn't have anyone with him. The man walked to the receptionist, a Kindle-looking woman named Sophie. "Hello, I want to buy a car today," he said. Sophie gave him a polite smile. "Sure, sir, please wait and someone will help you soon." But before she could call anyone, a salesman named Tim walked over. Tim had been listening and already thought the man was strange. "Buy a car?" Tim asked. Grinning, "You want one of these cars? Are you sure you're not lost?" The man didn't look upset. He just smiled and said, "Yes, I'd like to pay in cash." Tim laughed loudly, catching the attention of other salesmen. "Cash for one of our cars? You got to be joking." The man stood there quietly, but his calm look made it clear he wasn't joking. Tim crossed his arms, looking at the man from head to toe. "All right, Mr. Wallet, which car do you want to buy?" The man pointed to the shiniest car in the room, a bright red sports car sitting in the middle of the showroom. "That one," he said. Tim's eyes widened, and then he burst out laughing. "That's the Star Speedster 5000. That car costs $250,000. Are you sure you can even afford a toy version of it?" The other salesman heard this and joined in the laughter. "This guy thinks he's in a movie." One joked to the man, stayed calm, and said again, "I'll take it." I said, "I'll pay in cash." Tim shook his head and rolled his eyes. "All right, let's see your cash, my friend. I hope your wallet is the size of a suitcase." The man slowly took out his wallet. Inside was a single credit card and a folded piece of paper. "Seriously, that's it?" Tim said, laughing even louder. "You must be joking. Go to a toy store if you want to play games." The man quietly put his wallet back in his pocket. "I'm not joking," he said softly. Tim couldn't stop laughing. He leaned against a nearby car, shaking his head. "This is the funniest thing I've seen all day." The man ignored him and walked over to the red sports car. He gently touched its shiny surface, running his hand along the hood. "Hey," Tim yelled, stepping forward. "Don't touch the car. If you scratch it, you'll have to sell your clothes to pay for it." The man quickly pulled his hand away and said, "I'm sorry, it's a beautiful car." "Beautiful?" Tim repeated with a mocking grin. "Yeah, it is, but beauty like this isn't for people like you." The other salesman whispered and laughed. Even Sophie, who felt bad for the man, didn't say anything to stop them. The man stayed calm. "I'm serious about buying this car," he said again. Tim threw his hands in the air. "Oh, you're serious? Okay, then let's see how serious you are." Tim grabbed the car keys and dangled them in front of the man's face. "All right, Big Eye, let's take her for a spin." The man smiled and nodded. "Sure, let's go." But just as quickly, Tim pulled the keys back and smirked on second thought. "I don't think we should risk letting you drive this car if you crash it, or, worse, steal it." The man's smile faded slightly. "I won't crash it. I just want to see how it feels on the road." Tim looked at his boss, Mr. Jacobs, who stood nearby. "Hey, boss, should I let this guy test drive a speed?" Mr. Jacobs shook his head. "If anything happened, it's on you." Tim turned back to the man. "Sorry, no. Test drive for you today. Rules are rules." The man didn't argue. He simply nodded. "All right, I understand." The man walked around the showroom looking at other cars. He paused now, and then to admire the designs as he moved, the salesman continued to mock him. "Look at him, acting like he's a car expert." One said he's probably dreaming of owning one. Someday, another added. Even the customers in the showroom began whispering about the man. Some laughed quietly. While others just shook their heads, the man didn't react to any of it. He kept his focus on the cars, but anyone watching closely could see a hint of sadness in his eyes. Tim, enjoying the attention, walked up to the man again. "Still here? Should I call security to make sure you don't try to drive off with one of our cars?" The man shook his head. "No need for that. I'd like to speak to the owner of this dealership if possible." Tim laughed again. The owner. "Oh, sure, Mr. Brooks will be thrilled to meet you. Wait right here." The man sat down in the waiting area while Tim went to find the owner. The other salesman continued to joke about him. "Maybe he's waiting for his imaginary chauffeur to bring the cash." One said. Sophie watched the man sitting quietly holding a cup of water. She felt sorry for him. She walked over and said, "Sir, can I get you anything else while you wait?" The man smiled warmly. "No, thank you. This is fine." Sophie hesitated before asking, "Why don't you just leave? They're being so mean to you." The man chuckled softly. "Sometimes you see people's true colors when they think you're nobody." Sophie didn't understand what he meant, but his words stuck with her after an hour. Mr. Brooks, the dealership owner, finally walked in. He was a serious-looking man in a sharp suit. Tim walked up to him and said, "Boss, we've got a comedian in the showroom. He says he wants to buy the Speedster in cash." Mr. Brooks raised an eyebrow and looked at the man. "Is that so?" The man stood up and extended his hand. "Yes, I'd like to buy the car today." Mr. Brooks didn't shake his hand. Instead, he crossed his arms. "And how exactly are you planning to pay for it?" "Cash," the man replied calmly. Tim snorted. "Let's see that cash then." Buddy the man pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks opened the paper and stared at it for a moment. His face went pale. "What's that?" Tim asked, trying to peek. Mr. Brooks looked up at the man, his hands shaking. "Is this real?" The man nodded. "Yes, it is, Tim." Grabbed the paper and looked at it. His eyes nearly popped out of his head. This is a bank statement with billions of dollars." The room fell silent. Mr. Brooks handed the paper back to the man. His voice was shaky. "Sir, I didn't realize. May I ask your name?" "Elon Musk," the man said with a kind smile. Tim's jaw dropped. "Elon Musk, the billionaire." The man nodded. "That's right." Suddenly, the room erupted into chaos. Salesmen scrambled to apologize. Customers stared in disbelief. Tim's face turned bright red. Tim stammered, "Mr. Musk, I didn't mean to." Elon held up his hand. "No need to apologize. You've already shown me everything I needed to see." Tim looked confused. "What do you mean?" Elon's gaze was calm but sharp. "It's not about how much money someone has. It's about how you treat people. No matter who they are." Everyone in the showroom stood frozen, too stunned to speak. The once lively showroom was now silent. All eyes were on Elon Musk. Tim's confidence vanished like smoke. His smirk turned into a nervous twitch, and his laughter disappeared. Elon calmly looked around. "So is this how you treat every customer who walks in?" He asked. His voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp and direct. Tim Saint hammered, "And no, Mr. Musk. I didn't know it was you. I thought you thought I didn't belong here." Elon finished the sentence for him. The other salesman who had been mocking him earlier now looked at the floor. No one dared to say a word. Even Mr. Brooks, the owner, seemed unsure of what to do. Elon walked back to the red car and touched it again, his hands steady. "It's a beautiful car," he said softly, as if he hadn't just exposed everyone's judgmental behavior. Tim stepped forward nervously. "Please, Mr. Musk, let me make it up to you. I'll personally handle the sale." Elon turned to him, his eyes calm but piercing. "Are you sure you can handle it, Tim, or will you laugh at me again?" Tim froze, unsure of what to say. Mr. Brooks, sensing the tension, quickly stepped in. "Mr. Musk, I sincerely apologize on behalf of my staff. I assure you this is not how we usually treat our customers." Elon looked at him, his face unreadable. "I appreciate your apology, but actions speak louder than words," he said. The other customers, who had been silently watching now, whispered among themselves. Some felt bad for how Elon was treated, while others couldn't believe they were in the presence of such a famous man. Tim, still desperate to fix the situation, said, "I'll give you a discount, Mr. Musk, anything to make up for this misunderstanding." Elon raised an eyebrow. "A discount? Do you think I need a discount?" Tim's face turned bright red. "And no, I just meant..." Elon held up a hand to stop him. "What you meant doesn't matter. What matters is how you acted." The room felt colder with each passing second. Sophie, the receptionist, wished she could say something to make things better, but even she didn't know what to do. Elon walked to the waiting area and sat down. "I'll wait," he said simply. As Elon sat, the dealership buzzed with quiet whispers. Customers sneaked glances at him, trying to figure out what would happen next. Some even pulled out their phones to search for his name. "That's really Elon Musk," a man whispered to his wife. "Why would a billionaire come here alone?" Another asked. Tim leaned against a counter, sweating. His earlier confidence was gone, replaced by fear. He kept looking at Elon, hoping for a chance to apologize again, but Elon didn't even glance at him. Meanwhile, Mr. Brooks called an emergency meeting with the sales team in the back office. "Do you all understand what just happened?" he asked, his voice low and tense. The team nodded silently. "We made the biggest mistake of our careers," Mr. Brooks said, "and now we have to fix it," but how? No one had an answer. The tension in the room was so thick you could almost feel it back in the showroom. Elon sat calmly sipping water from a small paper cup, his relaxed posture only made everyone else more nervous after waiting for what felt like hours. Elon stood up. Everyone in the showroom watched him nervously. "I'd like to speak to Tim again," Elon said. Tim's heart sank slowly. He walked over his legs, feeling like jelly. "Why, yes, Mr. Musk," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Elon looked him straight in the eyes. "Tim, do you enjoy your job?" Tim blinked, confused. "Why, yes, of course I love working here." Elon nodded thoughtfully. "Good, then tell me this. Why did you treat me the way you did when I walked in?" Tim hesitated, struggling to find the right words. "I didn't know who you were." Elon interrupted him. "And if I wasn't Elon Musk, would you have treated me differently if I were just an ordinary man's?" Tim had no answer. His silence spoke louder than words. Elon sighed and turned to Mr. Brooks. "It seems like your staff needs some serious training in how to treat people." Mr. Brooks nodded quickly. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Musk. I'll make sure it never happens again." Elon walked back to the red car, his calm demeanor unchanged. "This car is worth $250,000, right?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Mr. Brooks replied nervously. Elon smiled faintly. "Do you know how many people could never even dream of owning something like this?" Mr. Brooks nodded, unsure of where the conversation was going. "Yet here I am, ready to buy it in cash, and your staff treated me like dirt." Elon continued. "Why? Because of how I was dressed. Because I didn't look like a typical rich man's." The salesman exchanged guilty looks. Tim stared at the floor, wishing he could disappear. Elon's voice grew softer. "You know, money doesn't make a person valuable. How you treat others is what matters most." Sophie, the receptionist, felt a wave of guilt and respect wash over her. She realized Elon wasn't just a billionaire. He was a person who valued kindness and respect above everything else. Elon turned to Mr. Brooks. "Do you think your staff deserves a second chance?" Mr. Brooks hesitated. "I believe they've learned their lesson." Sir Elon looked at Tim. "Have you?" Tim nodded quickly. "Yes, Mr. Musk. I'll never judge someone like that again. I swear." Elon studied him for a moment, then said, "All right, I'll give you a chance to prove it." Tim's eyes lit up with hope. "Thank you, sir. I promise I won't let you down." But Elon wasn't done. "However, I want to test you. I want to see how you treat others from now on. Not just me." Tim gulped but nodded. "I understand." As Elon prepared to finalize the purchase, he turned to Sophie. "You've been kind to me from the start," he said. Sophie blushed. "I was just doing my job, sir." Elon smiled warmly. "Sometimes doing your job with kindness makes all the difference." He pulled out a checkbook and wrote something down. "This is for you," he said, handing Sophie the check. Her eyes widened as she saw the amount. "This is a thank you for treating me like a human being." Elon said. The entire showroom gasped. Sophie's hands trembled as she tried to hold back tears. Elon turned back to Mr. Brooks. "I'll buy the car," he said, "but only if you promise to change how your team operates." Mr. Brooks nodded quickly. "I promise." Mr. Musk will improve immediately. Elon handed over his credit card. The sale was complete in minutes, but the lesson he left behind would last forever. Before leaving, Elon gathered the staff. "Remember this day," he said. "It's not about the money. It's about respect. Treat everyone with kindness, no matter who they are." The staff nodded, their faces filled with regret and determination to change. Tim stepped forward. "Thank you for giving me another chance, Mr. Musk. I'll never forget this." Elon gave him a small smile. "I hope you don't." The story of Elon Musk's visit spread quickly. Customers shared their experience on social media, praising his humility and wisdom. "Never judge a book by its cover," one post read. "You never know who you're talking to." The dealership became famous overnight, not for its cars, but for the lesson everyone learned. And Elon, he drove off in his shiny red car, leaving behind a story that no one would ever forget.